Hey everyone, it's been a while since I showed my face on camera. I think besides the AVGen Adventures Let's Play, I think the last video I used live action segments was actually the original Spyro the Dragon videos that I posted like 2 years ago. And then after that, I just started using my avatar for everything. But honestly, I just kind of miss just talking directly to you guys without using my avatar. But anyway, I think that it's finally time to talk about the final platforming trilogy on the PS2, Sly Cooper. So, this marathon's been a long time coming because, like, since I already did a Jak and Daxter and Ratchet and Clank, it only makes sense to finish off this Sony platforming trio retrospective with Sly Cooper. So I've been wanting to do videos on these games for over 3 years now, and as I mentioned in early videos, this only Jak and Daxter was the only Sony platforming game I've ever played since I never played Ratchet and Clank back then, as I said in the Ratchet and Clank videos. So probably wondering why it took me so long to finally review these games if I love them so much. Well, I did Jak and Daxter first because I was just getting back to the series at the time and I wanted to express my thoughts about those games. And as for why I did Ratchet after, it was because Rift Apart was coming out at the time and I wanted to try out the series for the first time. But to be completely honest, I'm happy that I decided to wait a little bit longer to get to these games because I feel like you shouldn't start off reviewing by reviewing your favorite games first, because then you're gonna start looking back and start thinking that you could have done better now that you're more experienced. Because I really wish for those games I went into more details about my thoughts, especially for Jak and Daxter, because my original review for Precursor Legacy wasn't even around 10 minutes, and honestly, I don't know why I thought it was a good idea to use my phone as my mic, because from the moment the video starts, you can hear how muffled it sounds, and now it just sounds like my nose is stuffy.
Jak throws a bomb at him, causing Daxter to fall in a pit of dark ego. Daxter pops out as a Pokemon, an odd soul, and then they come back to Samos to figure out how to turn Daxter back, but because he has a white Santa Claus beard, he just turns into old and cranky.
I mean, they're not bad to the point of me wanting to redo them like my Slime Generations or Raging Blast reviews, but fuck, I could have done so much better. So I guess that's kind of why it took me so long to get to Sly Cooper, because I love these games and I want to make sure that I get all my points across and give some of you guys who are newcomers to Sly a little bit of perspective from someone who's been playing these games for close to 10 years, and I don't really want to make a half-assed video of me just spending 2 minutes on one subject. It also just feels really appropriate to do this now because the series is turning 20 years old in September, so I think now is a better time to do this than ever. Anyway, the game originally came out like 5 years before I was even born, so I wouldn't even know about it until I played it at a friend's house, which, now that I think about it, we were born around the same time, so don't know how she had older consoles like the PS2 or GameCube, but they're probably just hand-me-downs, I don't know. I mean, my brothers probably might have saw commercials for the game when they were first coming out, but they were probably too busy playing Budokai Tenkaichi 3 or Madden. So I said that I played Jak and Sly when I was younger, but I actually played Sly before Jak. They did have Jak and Daxter, but I just wanted to play Sly because it's not because I thought Jak looked boring. I thought Jak looked decent, but I just thought that Sly just had a cool design. I liked the charisma that he carried with his look, the anthropomorphic look that he had going on. It looked pretty smooth. I just thought from a design standpoint, the guy looked cool. And I'm sure that Sucker Punch will be happy to hear that because their main idea when they were first designing the character was to make him look as suave, smooth, and slick as possible. Now, Sly was their first game that people recognized them for, but it wasn't their first game that they created, since they made Rocket Robots on Wheels for the N64 back in 1999, which was apparently a decent game for what I've heard. Now, Sucker Punch is known for the Ghost of Tsushima series, which has a lot of action-adventure elements, but also has a third-person perspective with a lot of Shadow of the Colossus inspiration. I should probably get to those games at some point. Oh, they also made the Infamous series, if anybody remembers those games. Anyway, with Robot on Wheels doing pretty good for the company, Sucker Punch wanted to try their hand at making a new IP and enter Sly Cooper. With this game, Sucker Punch wanted to go for a more graphical art style that mirrors an animated movie, but at the same time give it a noir foam feel. There's a lot of cel shading in this game, but the developers like to call it toon shading, make all the backgrounds look illustrated, but at the same time not look too flat. And I think that they did a pretty good job of making a game that I think still looks pretty good to this day. This game was released during a time where cel-shaded graphics were starting to leak into gaming, and I always thought they looked better than the games that go for a more realistic art style that date the game even more than they should. Metal Gear Solid 2, Resident Evil 4, and Devil May Cry are the only games from that era that I can think that have realistic graphics that don't age a lot. I mean, it's not perfect. I feel like they went a little bit overboard with the shading in some levels because it can look pretty dark sometimes, but that's probably just because of me playing on an HD TV, but it's still a nice game to look at. From the start of development, Sucker Punch knew that they wanted to make an action game with the main character being a thief. They had a more realistic design for Sly, much more raccoon-like, but not really Sly. But they eventually changed it up, so it'll go along with the tone of the game a little bit more. All the characters had up to 6 to 8 redesign before finally settling on a good one. With the PS2 technology, it allowed Sucker Punch to go all out in terms of animations. They want Sly to feel sneaky and make the player feel like a thief. If you want to know more about the development of this game, there's actually a documentary about how developing this game was like. I think that you should watch because it was pretty fun learning what was going through the developer's head and their insights while making this game. It looks like the team at Sucker Punch had a pretty good time making this game too. I honestly wonder if someone at Sucker Punch wanted to make an animated show, because they're always talking about the art style and how they had to make the movements look really smooth and everything. Anyway, after 5 years of development, Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus was released on September of 2002. It was also called Sly Raccoon in Power Regions, and I cannot tell you why. Initially, the game didn't really do well since Jak and Daxter and Ratchet and Clank were so much more popular than Sly was. Not to say that it was a failure, because 800,000 copies isn't something to scoff at, and obviously did well enough to get the greatest hits label on PS2, and get 3 other sequels and a movie which unfortunately got cancelled, and there's also a TV series which we know close to nothing about. See, the thing about Sly Cooper is that whenever something new gets announced, it always gets either cancelled or just don't get any updates about it. I think how Sucker Punch basically just shut down all the rumors about there being a new Sly Cooper game in development. It doesn't really seem that the future for Sly and the gang is pretty bright, but hey, at least the gang got an award for the best PS2 game that nobody played, and Sly as a character won an award for Character of the Year for 2002. No, the game financially wasn't as good as the other PS2 giants, but it didn't stop the game from getting pretty good critical reviews. A lot of them praised the more unique look of the game with the cel shading style and everything, and sure, Sly is definitely remembered fondly among people who played a lot of the PS2 in the early 2000s, or just fans in general. And this is probably the only game series that has a pretty good track record of games. Sure, there's only 4 of them, but it's still pretty cool how consistent in quality these games are. The only one that comes close is Jak and Daxter, since that game doesn't have any bad games either. Although the original trilogy has pretty good reviews, Thieves in Time is probably the only game that doesn't have a good reception. At least from fans, at least, because I remember hearing that it got decent reviews when it first came out. But I'll talk about that when we get to Thieves in Time. In case you guys are wondering if I'm going to review the entire Sly franchise or just the original trilogy, because of when I did Ratchet and Clank and Sly Cooper, I did the first 3 games of those series. But then Sly Cooper doesn't really have that many games to begin with. I'm going to look at all 4 games first for this marathon, because I don't think looking at 4 games for one marathon is going to take as much time as looking at 17 games. But seeing that Spiral Month is creeping up on us soon, I could review the first 3 games this month and hopefully look at these in time in early October. Also, if you're wondering why I'm playing these games on the original PS2 and not the PS3 remasters, it's pretty much because my PS3 got the yellow light and killed itself, so now I'm kind of forced to play these games via this way. Hopefully I can get a new one before I have to review Sly 4, but for now, this is the Sly trilogy directly off of my PS2. Yes, I finally got an Elgato for caching in my consoles. I'm happy that I don't have to rely on this thing to work on my stuff anymore because it almost never works. I even got this one for cheap too. It was only $60. It kind of sucks that this Elgato's capped at 1080p 30 FPS, but I can still record at 720/60, so honestly, as long as it works, then I'm fine with it. I'm just happy that I can give you guys some more quality footage. I know I'm going to get a lot of use out of this thing. How I recorded the game though, I was going to use the little card that connects to PS1, PS2, and PS3, but then I decided not to use it because when I tried recording Ratchet and Clank and Jak and Daxter for a test, it just looked like a bunch of pixels, so thankfully I had an upscaler that can make the picture look better, but then the footage came out looking so dark that it looked like I was recording in a cave, so then I decided to record it again and adjust the settings on the Elgato software, and it looked better, but for some reason when I exported it, it looked as dark as it did before. So then I tried to record it again with one cord unplugged, and when I exported it, it came out looking better but still looked dark at some points. But then when I looked at the original TS files for the video, somehow it looked better than it did when I exported it in an MP4 file. So then I had to convert it into an MP4 file, and while at the same time making sure they didn't lose their quality. But I already deleted some of the files, so some of the footage in this game can look a little bit dark sometimes. If anybody knows some solutions for this problem, then please let me know, because I am losing sleep over this. We haven't even gotten to the game yet, and somehow this video is already longer than the original Jak and Daxter video. But now that's all out the way, it's time to get to the following platforming giant, the Leftover Legacy on the PS2. You guys are ready? No? Well, too bad, because we're bringing this deep dive into the franchise, starting with Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus.
I love watching these guys.
So before I start the story summary, the Sly Cooper series always has some kind of overarching themes in their story. This is something I never brought up with Ratchet and Clank or Jak and Daxter, but the Sony platforming trio always has some kind of themes hidden in their games. For Ratchet and Clank, specifically the first and second game, had a lot of themes about commercialization, with them having ads about core promoting stuff and the prototype stuff in the second game. With Jak and Daxter, Jak 2 in particular, have some overlapping themes about dictatorship, with the bear ruling over Haven City with an iron fist, and a little bit of overthrowing the government, with Jak joining the Underground who are trying to take back Haven City. I probably should have looked this up when looking at Jak X, but there's also some themes of morality in that game, with Jak thinking about if some of the things that he did in Jak 2 were the right thing. I mean, yeah, he just kind of stops giving a shit at the end, but I don't know, I just thought it was pretty cool, and adds a little bit of character depth to Jak. With Sly Cooper, there's always been a theme of reputation in these games, like Sly feeling like he has a lot of weight on his shoulders for him to uphold his family's name, and these themes will become more prominent in Sly 3 though. I'm just gonna say this right now, these videos aren't gonna be like really in-depth analysis about the themes of reputation in Sly Cooper. I'm a casual Sly fan and I'm going into this story with a casual point of view. Besides, anyone who's a bigger Sly fan than me can summarize these game stories better than I ever could. If you want some examples, go check out the Black Man Dante's video on Sly Story or B-Matt's video on the series. And all that said, we should probably start with a spoiler warning because these thoughts are pretty intricate. At least in the sequels. For this game, it's always a little bit more simple, but not by much. We're not at the point where there's a lot of dialogue, but this game is a little bit more chattier than any other platform that was released at the time. So skip to this point if you only want to hear about the game. The game starts off with this intro that really shows off what this game is all about. This new seeking around searchlights while running on rooftops trying not to get caught. It's even more better when Sly himself is animated in a silhouette style so you don't see what he looks like until the lights flash on him. And it makes it even better since the original Black Label case of the game doesn't show you Sly or anyone else. It's just the Thievius Raccoonus symbol and nothing else. It really hypes up the mystery of this game, which is why I never really liked Braid's hits hardcover of the game. The label is better than the PS1 Braid's hits label, but why did they change the cover though? I mean, artistically it looks fine, but this cover is way better than this. I know this might sound hypocritical to anyone who's seen my Metal Gear Solid review where I kind of bashed the US cover for that game for being too simple. Let me just make this clear. There's a difference between trying to keep things subtle and just not giving a shit. But to make that even worse, the PS3 remasters just make Sly visible from the start, and to be fair, you probably already know who Sly is if you're buying the remasters, but it just kind of takes out the mystery from it. Anyway, after that, Sly and his friends Murray and Bentley are trying to steal back his police file from Interpol, but after stealing it back, Sly runs into the top inspector of the world, Carmelita Montoya Fox, who the artist must have a lot of fun designing her character model because until this playthrough, I never noticed how curvy she actually is. It's kind of creepy now that I think about it. It doesn't really help how there's a lot of weird sexual tension between her and Sly. We're not the worst of it yet, but here, it's just kind of fun to joke about it.
Now that we're a team and all, I need to leave your side.
Hold on. This truce is only temporary. Once we beat Clockwork, I'm coming after you.
Really?
Well, maybe I'll give you a 10-second head start.
So they escape from Carmelita, and it's here where we learn about Sly's backstory. Here we find out that Sly actually comes from a long line of thieves, and they specialize in stealing from other criminals. I mean, it's still robbery which way you look at it, but I guess stealing from thieves isn't as dickish as stealing from normal people. Sly says it better here.
Anyone who read it learned to be especially sneaky, which is why we specialize in stealing from criminals. After all, there's no honor, no challenge, no fun stealing from ordinary people.
And they keep track of all their thievery in a book called the Thievius Raccoonus, and Sly's next in line to inherit their abilities. I'm not sure how they can just inherit their abilities automatically. Sly just says, reading the book instantly makes you a thief. But on the night that Sly was supposed to inherit the book, 5 people called the Fiendish Five, consisted of Sir Raleigh, Mugshot, Miss Ruby, the Panda King, and their leader Clockwork, bust down the door and start ransacking the house, stealing all the pieces of the Thievius Raccoonus and going all other places to cause crime. They even killed Sly's father while he was watching. Now I just realized in almost any type of media, whether it's video games, anime, or movies, the main character's parents are always getting killed in their backstories. Like, what's that about? Anyway, Sly was dumped at an orphanage where he meets his two best friends, Murray, the getaway driver and muscle of the gang, and Bentley, besides having magical abilities that makes him look exactly the same as he did when he first met Sly to this exact moment. He's also the brains of the crew and also does all the computer stuff for the gang. Together they stole all the stuff, which captured the attention of Carmelita, who's made it her sole purpose to put the Cooper gang in jail. So that's the main setup for a story. Like, the rest of the plot just kind of goes up and down, if I can put it in any better way, because like, until the fun lap of the story doesn't really go anywhere. Not to say that nothing going on whatsoever, it's just that until you enter a Clockwork's lair, it's just dialogue. You still buy pages from the Thievius Raccoonus each time you take down a member from the Fiendish Five, and what's pretty cool about them all is that they all have backstories that tell you why you're evil. So Raleigh was bored of the rich lifestyle and decided to turn to a life of crime. Mugshot got picked on as a child for being weak and inspired by gangster movies. He started lifting weights and became a bodybuilder. Miss Ruby had a lot of creepy interests as a kid, and because of that, nobody wanted to be friends with her. So she studied the arts of voodoo and wanted to make everyone who feared her back then fear her now. Kind of counterintuitive, but okay. And finally, there's the Panda King, who was born in his youth. He always liked the fireworks that was always set off in New Year's. He started the art of it, and when he wanted to show off what he can do with them, he was rejected and wanted to get revenge on everyone who shunned him. always like how they gave so much personality to the bad guys because it gives a little bit more of a deeper look on why they're like this, and apart from Raleigh, it makes everyone a little bit more three-dimensional and not bad guys for the sake of bad guys. But what really bothers me is the fact that one member always gives away the other member's location, which from a gameplay perspective, I can understand that, but realistically, why would you do that? You're practically just asking Sly to beat you.
This is impossible. A little pipsqueak like you beating a big, strong bruiser like me? It ain't right. You want all of that stupid picture book? You're gonna have to go down to Haiti and cross paths with Miss Ruby. And then believe you me, you don't want to be you.
What makes it even more annoying is the fact that when you find out where Clockwork is, it's because Bentley connects the pieces on where to go, so why can't they let Bentley tell you where to find the rest of the Phoenix 5 members? He's obviously smart enough to do it. I know it's a little kind of sounding nitpicky, but I feel like there could have been a better way to tell the player where to go next without making the Phoenix 5 look like they're purposely trying to fuck up their own plan. Anyway, once Bentley tells Sly where to find Clockwork, he and the gang set off to Russia to find him. On his way there, he knows that there's a lot of silhouettes of a bird-like creatures in some pages of the Thievius Raccoonus. After going through a bunch of security, Sly finds Carmelita trapped inside of a container, and the minute Sly shows up to save her, she immediately blames Sly getting her trapped, which you all know is bullshit because we just got here. But knowing that Sly will probably try to save Carmelita, Clockwork says, "Gotcha, bitch!" and rakes the container spray poison gas that will turn Sly's brain into cheese as Bentley puts it here. This is where the brains of the game fall and come out into the field and do some attacking that will deactivate the gas. When Bentley does that, Sly and Carmelita form a temporary truce to date on Clockwork. Sly uses Carmelita's jetpack, which she just has for some reason, and uses it to finally take on Clockwork, where he finds out that he's been waiting for this day so he can drag Sly's family name to the dirt, and also goes on about how he hated the Cooper family for many centuries. And I'm not joking when I say that either, because when Sly asks him how old he is, he says, and I quote, "I've been keeping myself alive for hundreds of years with a steady diet of jealousy and hate." How can one man hate a group of people so goddamn much that it keeps them alive for multiple years? And he also reveals that the reason why he let Sly live all those years ago is because he wanted to show the world that the Cooper line was nothing but the Thievius Raccoonus. And this is honestly one of the main reasons why the villains never win, because they never kill a hero when they have the chance to, or because they want to prove a point or something, and always give the hero a chance to make a comeback. Like, even Sly asked Clockwork why he didn't kill him when he had the chance.
I don't get it. You're so familiar with my family. You must have known my father had a son. If you hated the Coopers so much, why did you let me live when you stole the Thievius Raccoonus?
Because I wanted to show the world that without your precious book, the Cooper line was nothing.
But Sly tells him that it makes great thieves to make the Thievius Raccoonus and not the other way around. So after Sly defeats Clockwork, Carmelita sneaks up on Sly and gives her that 10-second head start that she promised him. So Sly uses that 10 seconds to grab a smooch from her, handcuff her to a railing, and then escape. And after credit scene shows us that Clockwork might not be done yet, hinting at a sequel, which you must have a lot of faith in your game to already tease a sequel. I mean, Sly Cooper did do well enough to get a sequel, and that's great and all, but like, what if the game just completely flopped? You all look like complete dumbasses. And there's also a little cussing that plays after you collect all the pages in the Thievius Raccoonus, where Sly goes about how he earned his title as a thief, and how he feels confident enough to lead his gang in the future heist. So like I said before, the main part of the story doesn't really get going until the final level of the game. The rest of it is just Bentley explaining to Sly what to do, but I think the characters are what makes this story. I mean, Bentley and especially Murr doesn't get as much character development as Sly here. With Bentley, you can see that he's always in the background, always and acting as the guy in the chair, but when Sly's in trouble, it's Bentley's turn to finally get out on the field, and he does it successfully, and I feel like that was a pretty good arc for him in this story. As for Murray, he's the one character I could have done without, and it's not because he's annoying or anything, but it's more like the fact that he almost serves no purpose here. But I guess it's because he's too scared and nervous to get out on the field. But I shit you not, when I replayed the trilogy like 3 summers ago, I was surprised to see that Murray was in the first game because I just straight forgot that he was there. I thought that he was only ever in the sequels because he plays a bigger part in those games. Even in Thieves in Time, Murray has a more prominent role, and it kind of sucks too because he's one of the 3 main characters. It's not terrible, but I just wanted to talk about it. It's pretty obvious that the story is all about Sly and his journey about restoring his family name. I think what makes Sly a great character is that while he can be a sarcastic douchebag sometimes, he knows when to take things seriously and knows what's at stake, and his more laid-back and relaxed personality makes for the perfect dynamic with Carmelita, who's more hot-tempered and serious. He's kind of like Nathan Drake in that aspect, since like Sly, Nate's always cracking jokes at his rivals just to lighten the situation, but it takes big threats seriously. And it's not to the point of being annoying either, because all the villains and Carmelita are always making quips back at him, with Carmelita especially not having it anytime Sly flirts with her. Like, even Bentley gets sick of Sly's shit every once in a while.
Hold on, Sly. See those searchlights? One careless step and you'll be subjected to acute combustion.
You done whining? Let's go.
I'm just trying to keep you alive, partner.
But since we're on the topic of Sly and Bentley, the back and forth banter between these two are always fun to listen to, because kind of like Sly and Carmelita, Sly's calm personality combined with Bentley's more anxious attitude bounce off each other perfectly. I mean, they start pretty rough in the opening cutscene like this.
Sly, come in! Sly! Do you read me?
Yeah, I read you. Loud and very loud.
But to be completely honest, I always laugh at how bad that is. I really love Sly and Bentley's dialogue in this game because it always has me laughing or at least smiling the whole way through. Like some of my favorite lines are where Bentley explains something complexly and then Sly just dumbs it down for a player.
Sly, see that machine wheel? If my knowledge of mechanical engineering serves me right, applying significant rotational torque to achieve maximum velocity will yield a positive result.
You mean something good might happen if I can get the wheel to spin fast enough?
Isn't that what I just said?
Like, it's such a small moment, but always gets a laugh out of me now. But speaking of jokes, people really love saying how much Insomniac got away with all the innuendos in the Ratchet and Clank games.
I thought we agreed to put that jungle business behind us. It was mating season. How could I have known she was your sister? How long have you two been standing there?
Too long.
But almost no one brings up the newspaper headlines that come up whenever Carmelita busts each member of the Fiendish Five. Like, look at this. Hot chick with gun busts amphibious yuckmouth. Hot Latina Spitfire puts fiery panda on ice. Hot stuff with badge collars canine criminal. Latin hottie busts big bad voodoo mama. I'm positive that's some kind of category on Pornhub. They don't appear on screen for more than 5 seconds, so people don't really have a chance to read them fast enough, but Sucker Punch really needs some more credit for this. Anyway, the dialogue in this game is well written, and has great jokes too, and it really helps since for the time they came out, the voice acting is amazing. Kevin Miller as Sly is fantastic, Matt Olson as Bentley did a great job capturing his personality, and Chris Murphy was pretty decent as Murray even though he's a little bit high pitched in this game. The only character I say sounds a little bit iffy is Carmelita, and any Sly fan knows what I'm going to bring up here, and it's the fact that Carmelita's voice actor never stays the same. It always changes in every game, and it happens so frequently to the point where it's a meme in the community, and unlike Ratchet and Spyro, with every new one you can tell that it's not the same person. For this game we have Roxanne Ortega, and in this game she sounds really emotionless. I feel like if Sucker Punch gave her a little more time to get used to the character, she would have improved, but in this game, she's above average at best. This game also has a couple of dark moments, and I'm not talking about how Sly's parents were murdered in front of an 8-year-old child, but in the fourth world, the Panda King buries a town of people under a block of snow, and it kind of gives Sly more of a reason to want to stop the Panda King outside of getting a page from the Thievius Raccoonus back. Even when the Panda King tries to convince Sly that the two of them are alike, he sets the record straight by one of them is only a thief because of his heritage, meanwhile he's just a guy who's angry at people for rejecting his fireworks idea.
I see you carry Kane of notorious Cooper Thief clan. Have you come here for revenge? To steal back the Thievius Raccoonus?
That was my plan at first, but now I'm more interested in putting an end to your avalanche extortion racket.
Why should you care if I bury a few worthless village in snow? You are a thief, just like me.
No, that's only half right. I am a thief from a long line of master thieves, while you're just a frustrated firework artist turned homicidal pyromaniac.
It's a small detail, but I just think that it's cool to know that even though Sly's a thief, there's still some lines that he won't cross. It's just good writing all around the board. This shit is great. The only thing I wanted out of it is just a little bit more going on in the middle. God damn, I didn't think I would have this much to say about the story, but here we are when we're like 20 minutes into the video and we haven't even got to this video game part of this video game. So when we're talking about the gameplay, it sounds crazy how Sucker Punch made a better 6th gen Crash game than the actual 6th gen Crash game. Like, it's not perfect, there's still some stuff I want to get into more details about, but I'm happy to say that I really like this game as much as I did before. So I guess we should start off with how Sly controls first. To get Sly's control scheme relatively simple for this game, he could jump and double jump, which feels pretty good to pull off since he kind of has the Crash 4 double jump. Well, technically Crash from Crash 4 has the Sly Cooper double jump since it's about time came out after Sly's, and I forgot where I was going with this. What I mean by that is that when you're already in the air, you can still perform another jump after the height of your jump. I always really hated that with the double jump in Crash 3 because more often than not, it caused him more trouble than it should have. He also has an attack button for him to use that cane that he has to slap away enemies with. And he can also sneak around walls wherever there is blue sparkles around certain poles to avoid spotlights and getting caught by guards. He can also cling on to ladders and poles, and it feels so goddamn good to pull off because the moment you press the circle button, there's no way you're coming off of it. Even if you tap the analog stick in any other direction except for the one that you're in, you're not falling off because Sly immediately adjusts into the angle that he's in. He can also use his cane to swing on certain hooks. Sly's really fun to control, and when you play as him, you really feel like a thief, exactly what Sucker Punch is going for. When you tap on the analog stick, Sly starts tiptoeing like you expect him to. The only problem I have with the control is that whenever Sly's near a cliff and then I press a button, I think there's a little bit of delay because Sly just starts falling to the ground like a goddamn Looney Tunes character. When you beat a boss at the end of the world, you get a new power-up to your moveset, which was inspired by getting power-ups after beating a boss from Crash 3, which itself was inspired by getting a Robot Master's power after defeating them in Mega Man. After beating Raleigh, you get Ryorichi Cooper's Spiral Jump, which allows Sly to land on narrow platforms, which again, feels really good to pull off because the moment you press the circle button, you land on a platform even though it looks like you're not going to land on it. After beating Mugshot, you get Tennessee Kid Cooper's move to grind on rails and walk on rails, which is pretty fun to do, but it's hard to tell if you're supposed to grind on a rail or walk on one. And there's also this one section when you're grinding away from a swamp monster, and my hands always sweat when I get to this section because I always miss some balls that hang over you while you're walking. Beating Miss Ruby gives you Sly's Hammond Cooper's ability to go invisible to be undetected by guards, which sounds cool, but you can't move while doing it. You do get an upgrade to move while doing it, but it's so goddamn slow that you're better off sneaking past the guards than normal. Just look at Sly slowly moving around. Yeah, that's definitely helpful. The last move you can unlock is from Auto Fan Cooper, which isn't even an upgrade for Sly. It's for a van to shoot off pellets when you're entering Clockwork's lair, and it gets broken literally the second you finish that level. Right before a level starts, Bentley tells you how to use the new moves that you learn in the Banaki column. I know everyone else has already made this joke, but how does Sly just automatically know what Bentley means when he says press the circle button? I know it's for the players to figure out how the mechanics work, but they should have Sly just wondering what the fuck is this guy going on about. And also in the Banaki column conversations, you can do this.
If Raleigh's really as smart as his police files suggest, then that's where I'll find him.
Wonderful idea, but your plan is flawed.
Why?
Because it's impossible to get near him. To access Raleigh's blimp, you would have to sneak through that high voltage power tube. To do that without getting electrocuted, you'd have to destroy that power generator. And to do that...
Overall, the upgrades in this game are pretty hit and miss in my opinion. So this game is often branded as a stealth game, but I don't really think that it's a true stealth game. I mean, there's still stealth elements like searchlights, guards, and lasers that activate if you walk into them, but stealth doesn't really become a core gameplay mechanic until the sequels. How the stealth works in this game is actually pretty good. Now the guards are a little bit stupid because you can kill one guard in front of the other guard and they won't bat an eye to it. But getting caught by these guys is actually a lot easier than you would think it is. So whenever people talk about the sounds in stealth games that they always hate, they immediately talk about the alert sound from Metal Gear Solid. For me, it's always been that fucking whistle that plays every time I get caught. Whenever I think that I successfully sneak past a guard, that whistle blows telling me that I fucked up. Now I'm either getting murdered or running away like a damn fool. It was always the worst when I was younger. Now it makes me go like, oh shit, then actually frustrated because there's not a lot of enemies in this game. I felt like they were impossible to get past or I couldn't take down when I got caught. Except for the dogs and mugshot levels because just... fuck these guys. I can never get past these guys whenever I get caught because somehow their guns are so accurate to the point where I sort of have heat-seeking bullets. Like you need fucking ultra instinct just to dodge them. But I feel like Sucker Punch really nails Sly's controls here because you really feel like you're a thief. And when you're sneaking past guards, it feels so satisfying taking down a guard without getting caught. Whenever his lasers flying around the levels, since Sly's pretty floaty, you can actually use that to your advantage by double jumping constantly in different directions to avoid getting caught. What I really love about the stuff in this game is that whenever you're behind something, the music gets all dynamic and all you can hear is Sly's footsteps. It's little details like this that really shows how much care went into to make you feel like Sly. So the stealth in this game is designed pretty well. I mean, it's not like Metal Gear Solid levels are great, but for the first game where they were trying to figure out what they were trying to do, this is good game design. Sly only has one hit point, get hit and you die, which I wouldn't mind so much if Sly didn't have knockback every time he gets hit. No, seriously, you see how far that guard knocked him back? It's weird to me how this 2002 game has an arcade feature like that from the 80s. It also makes it even worse whenever you fall off the edge of a cliff. Sly has these little death animations like a Wile E. Coyote cartoon. I love Sly's death animations, I really do, but he takes so long to recover from them, and in a game where I want to keep the speed going, it gets pretty annoying when I come near the edge of a platform and I just activate Sly's death animations for no real reason. And when you collect a horseshoe, that counts as a hit point. Collect another one and you have 3 hit points. You can find horseshoes either in random locations or getting them from collecting 100 coins. And anytime you get 100 coins after collecting 2 horseshoes, you get an extra life, which is a little bit weird having a life in this game, since Jack and Ratchet didn't have a life system, but I don't think that is too bad, since I don't think Sly 1 is a relatively hard game. I only game over like 3 times in the entire game, and even if you get a game over in this game, you only have to start the entire level from the beginning, and these levels aren't really long to begin with, so getting a game over will only put you a few steps back instead of outright punishing you. So here's how the game works. You start off in an intro level that shows you how the ropes of that world, then you're thrown into a hub world inspired a little bit by Spiral's hub world, but even then they're still pretty linear because one area is blocked off until you get enough keys to enter that area. The treasure keys are the main collectibles, and you need 7 of them to beat the world. When you first start the treasure key at the end of an intro level, after that you have to get 3 more keys to enter another half of the hub, then the rest of the 4 keys are to fight a boss. Inside of the main level, you can find 20 to 40 clue bottles that are needed to unlock these saves. They're not too hard to find, but some of them can be obscured by the camera, and also doesn't really help that you can only move the camera left or right and not up and down. And to be fair, left and right are the only directions that you need while playing a game like this, but I don't know, it at least should have been an option. I also really love how whenever Sly dies, you still have a control over the camera. When you collect all the clue balls in the level, you unlock a new move from the Thievius Raccoonus. While some of them are pretty cool, like the dive move, which keeps the flow going and even makes it better when you unlock an upgrade for it, or you can just do a dive bomb when you're airborne. Dive bomb! And the roll move, which gives you a little bit of speed if you can find the right terrain to do it. And it's just pretty funny looking at Sly rolling like a rubber ball. And you get an upgrade for it, so you have this little barrier that can kill guards that touch it. But some of them are just useless, like the fast maneuver, which speeds you up, but it speeds up everything around you too, so it's not that useful. The same issue with the slow tactic, it slows down everything around you, but you slow down too. They only say that it's supposed to get you past guards either, but I tried using this move when I got caught one, and it didn't do anything for me. Then there's the mine technique, where you have to plant a bomb, but it feels like you have to be at point blank range in front of the enemy just to try to plant it in the first place. The decoy technique sounds like it would be pretty cool, but you're probably better off just avoiding the guards as normal. And you also get the ability to stun guards all around the world for a few seconds, which sounds cool, but it's only for a few seconds and they just go back to normal, so again, it's better to just avoid them as normal. Some of them are just straight up broken, like how you can just ignore death altogether, or whenever you fall into a bottomless pit, or how Bentley says it here, you can briefly defy gravity, so it's almost impossible to die at that point. But when you get to a specific safe in the level, you get the ability to find all the clue balls you missed in all the other levels in that world. And whenever I found this, some part of my brain just started jumping up and down like an 8-year-old kid who got exactly what they wanted for their birthday. Because that meant now, I don't have to start checking for every single spot in an area. I can just put on the Binoculum and just find out where all of the missing stuff is that way. You can also find out what objects are breakable and what's not, but it's not as cool as finding out where the rest of the collectibles are, because some of them are hidden in pretty clever places, like in the first level, they're hidden on top of this pole, I use something on the pole to get them down, and in the mugshot level, they're hidden inside of this pipe right here. It's really cool how Sucker Punch knows how to use their environments to their advantage. I never gotten all the clue balls in the original Sly Cooper until this video, so now I can check that off my bucket list. Collecting all of them unlocks an extra cutscene like I said before, but beating the game rewards you with a Japanese version of the opening cutscene, redone in a new art style and everything. And it's animated really smoothly too, and I wonder if the Japanese version of Sly 1 had the English version of the opening cutscene as a reward for beating the game. You can also watch back all the normal cutscenes in the van from Bentley. I also love whenever you're switching to Murray, after a level he's always doing something different like eating cookies or dancing to music or just helping out Bentley. But now that we got the main gameplay out the way, it's time for the part of the game that I've been dreading the most, the different gameplay styles. Now when I first played this game, I fucking hated these sections with every fiber of my being because they were just so annoying to get through. First you shoot in the crowd so they don't steal the treasure in the first world, which I hated the first time because I felt like they just spammed the treasure boxes everywhere, which means if I spend too much time on one box, the other box gets taken away. Now I finished this mission on my 3rd try, so it's not as bad as I remember it to be. I mean, my heart was fucking pounding when I was getting close to finish it, but besides that, it's alright. Then there's these missions with Murray because I guess Sucker Punch needed something for him to do. First there's racing to win a key. I hated these missions before and I sure as hell don't like them anymore now. The controls are way too loose, you slip and slide all over the place, and it's almost impossible to get first place until the last lap. I hear people say that the other racers have an advantage over you since they have better handling, but honestly, even some of the other racers in my playthrough flip over at the thought of even making a straight turn. It's almost like Sucker Punch play tested the cars in this game and just said, oh shit, we fucked up the handling on this van, and it just made the racers handle even worse just to compensate. The other missions with Murray have Sly covering him while he tries to get a key avoiding all the guards. These missions still suck. I swear whenever it looks like I'm shooting the guard, I'm not connecting any hits. And you can also kill Murray by accident. Why can you even do that? And what makes it even frustrating is the fact that I'm fairly certain that Murray can defend himself against a couple of guards, because in the sequels, this motherfucker can punch guards so hard that they start flying, belly slam anything in a 2-mile radius, and throw so far that even Hulk will go like,
oh shit.
But all he can do here is just hide himself because that's gonna help. The only other missions with Murray is at the end of the game, where you have to get 60 computed before these lava monsters do, which aren't too bad, but don't expect to beat on your first try, it's just not gonna happen. Then there's a Piranha challenge in Miss Ruby's Swamp, and it sucks, man. You need like 25 torches in 2 minutes, and you need a Piranha as fuel. I don't know if it was just me, but I feel like once you light up a certain amount of torches, the rest are just really hard to find, and I run out of time and have to do all over again. There's also these sections where Sly controls a machine turn that plays like a twin stick shooter, and these segments are okay except for the fact that in one level I fell off the conveyors and I just kind of got stuck with no way out except for restarting the stage. And I could also just face inside and out solid objects, while did Sly also inherit a power from his ancestors that turns him part ghost? Also, the separate gameplay styles in this game. I've been saying this for years and I would die on this hill, but Sly only shines the most in his irregular platforming. I want to find about these if they at least made some sort of sense in the game, because this has nothing to do with this. But there's also some different types of gameplay in the regular platform just to switch it up. In some levels you'd be using this barrel to hide in. It's basically like the box in the MGS series, but unlike those games, if you hide in a suspicious place you'll get caught. Here, you can hide it anywhere and not get caught, so yeah. Another example of this game being stealth themed, but not having it as a part of its gameplay. And there's also these levels where you run away while being chased by Carmelita, and for someone who's referred to as the world's top inspector, she cannot aim for shit. Like seriously, you can just bum rush these levels and I guarantee that you won't get hit once. Even when it looks like she shot you, somehow it didn't. And even when you're standing directly in front of her, all she can do is just shake her fist at you. Like Carmelita, do you have dust in your eyes? You have a clear shot on them. There's literally no reason for you to miss now. That's it, I'm never taking you seriously again, you fox girl. Last thing to talk about with the gameplay is the Master Thief sprint. This is very similar to the time travel from Crash Warp. Here you play through the entire level but faster with an incredibly strict time limit. And I really mean it when I say a strict time limit. God damn, I barely finished that run. Now I want to do a 100% run of the Sly Cooper trilogy, but I don't think I can do it for Sly 1 because you're barely given enough time to do them, let alone rush through them. And a part of me feels like these levels weren't really built for speedrunning because trying to rush through a game where you're trying not to get caught by the guards, it just doesn't really mesh well. And once you get caught by a guard, the timer speeds up until you break the siren. You would think that a fast technique would help out, but honestly, it feels like the time goes even faster when you do that. They really want you to master these levels because any small mistake can mess up a perfect run, and shortcuts can make or break a run too. I wouldn't mind this too much if it wasn't needed for 100%, and you can argue the same thing with Crash, but this is on a whole new level more extreme than the Platinum Relics in Warp because in that game, there's tiers of relics that you can unlock with the goal being enough to tip over the completion percentage, and the Platinum Relics are just for bragging rights. Here there's no tiers, it's just one straight flawless run. Almost every time I think I get a good run in a level, something is blocking the way or something happens at the end, or even worse, I'm only off by 2 or 3 or even a millisecond. This happened to me so many times to the point where I lost count and I've lost my patience. I'm not doing the thief sprints in this game. I'm gonna be here all month if I do. And all you unlock when you complete them all is just a documentary on how Sly was conceived, which might have been cool in 2002, but doesn't mean a goddamn thing now. We can just look it up. Maybe if I ever do a Let's Play on this game, I might try to go for them. Now I think what's left to talk about is the boss fights. The boss fights in this game are kinda hit or miss. So all these fun since you can just cheese them like this in the first 2 phases, and the strategy to beat Mugshot was pretty cool. I just wish that he wasn't so aggressive on the offense, because I can never dodge his bullets no matter how much I try. He's the only boss where I actually got a game over at. My least favorite boss is without a doubt Miss Ruby. Clockwork is a close second, but this boss fight is just awful. Anyone who's ever played this boss before knows exactly why. It's basically just DDR, but you're dodging the button inputs. But I don't know if it was just me, but I swear my inputs were so delayed because when I knew I pressed the button, Sly didn't do anything. Like there, what happened? I pressed triangle. Why would I just do nothing there? I don't know if it's my TV, my controller, or my upscaler, but I felt like I had to press buttons multiple times just to get one input out. I love the Panda King boss fight, just because when you get to him, you can just start wailing on him, and his attack pattern is almost never changed, and he still wonders why you beat him. He's like that one Call of Duty player who always complains about why he's getting killed, but he's always going into everything with no strategy. Finally, there's Clockwork. If it wasn't for Miss Ruby, I would have labeled this as the worst boss of the damn game. It's not the fact that you're playing with a jetpack that makes this boss bad, but a split-second shit you have to avoid just to beat the game. If this boss was just nothing but platform, I would be fine with that, but instead, use the jetpack for most of the boss, and the final phase of the boss is just happy slaps. Overall, the boss in this game could have been better. The graphics in this game look really good. I already went into this briefly in the beginning of the video, but yeah, the stage environments look great, and the cel-shading graphics give the game a little bit of its own identity. And the graphic designer did a great job of making this game look like an interactive anime movie. The aesthetics of Sly Cooper is what I'm always attracted to because of how bright it looks and how it creates some kind of atmosphere. The presentation looks good here too. The logo for the game looks slick and clean, and the UI is nice and smooth blue. Plus my favorite color, so that's a bonus. And for the character models, these guys look great. Characters have a great amount of squash and stretch. The lip animations look great. Everyone's pretty expressive and have great facial animations too. The only character I will say looks stiff is Sly because his facial expressions can get a little bit goofy looking. Let me just freeze frame on some of these for a minute. Yeah. It's the only model in the game I would say looks dated, and even then it's only in the cutscenes, and in the gameplay, Sly doesn't look too bad. While I prefer the more comic book-like style that the sequels go for, but the first game still looks pretty good to this day. In fact, when the game first came out, it was all the critics were talking about. The collision detection is pretty good, and I didn't really have any glitches happen to me, well, except for this. The soundtrack in this game slaps. It has a lot of James Bond influence, but always knows how to set an atmosphere for a level. I wouldn't really download any of these songs, but when I'm playing the game, I'll always hum to it. Some of my favorite songs in this game is the title screen and the song that plays in the credits, but for some reason some tracks in the HD collections are changed, which would sound bad, but some of them actually enhance the dramatic feel like the final boss. Overall, the soundtrack is good as shit. Well, I think that's about time that I finally end this. Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus is a damn good game. Don't get me wrong, this game isn't perfect. There's still some stuff that can use some improvement, but for what it is, this is a solid first game in the series, and it's what Wrath of Cortex should have been. I'm happy to say that this game is still as good as I remember it being. The story and its writing is amazing, the characters have great writing, the gameplay can be annoying sometimes, but still fun. The presentation is aged really well, and the soundtrack is a bop too. So this game definitely comes as recommended, just to see at least how help Sly at the start. I don't really think that this game is good as Precursor or Legacy, but at the same time, it doesn't really go through a lot of first game syndrome like the original Ratchet & Clank game. But overall, it's still a good game, and definitely deserves to be remembered as a good one. We're only one game into this marathon, and this is already the longest video I've ever made. But I'm leaving no stone unturned, so hopefully I can get this next video out faster when we look at Sly 2 Band of Thieves. So I don't know if I actually can get out faster, but I'm already recording footage for the game as we speak, so I can tell you that much. So until that video comes out, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.